On this edition of Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose, the shutdown is over. The collaboration connection to jumpstart your agency's reopening and data-driven AI success for every agency. Welcome to a special reopening edition of Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose. Federal agency leaders say the end of the shutdown's turbocharging their collaboration efforts. Agency technology leaders have some really important relationships to nurture, according to Allen Hill. He's the outgoing Chief Information Officer at the Federal Communications Commission. Alan, thanks for joining me today. Last time you and I talked, you said that the acquisition leader in an organization and the Chief Financial Officer in an organization will be the CIO's best friend during this reopening time. How will those relationships be different, in your view, than they were before the shutdown?
Well, I would say from the moving to a 44-day shutdown, you got an opportunity to reset things and how you move forward. And I look at it as three essential questions I would ask my team, also working with the CIO and the CFO. It is what things stop during the shutdown, what things slowed down during the shutdown, and then also what things kept working throughout the shutdown. I think that's essential because where things stopped, that likely required human interaction for those things to move forward. And that's an area where opportunity to look at this to close gaps. There has always been gaps. I don't think the shutdown showed any new gaps, but what it did show where there's opportunity to address things where manual processes are required for the government to function, and that's where technology can help and move into where there's not the reliance on human intervention for those technologies to work.
It gives you some business intelligence that maybe you didn't have or wasn't in your face like it is now in the wake of the shutdown. Is that?
Absolutely. So today's technology, so for agencies that still have things in a data center, and there was a few things still left in the data center at FCC while I was there. 5 systems remain, but 95% is out of the data center in the cloud. One thing is important is to make sure that you can function and provide citizen services without the need of human. And this is where AI and automation comes into play to help be a catalyst for those services to move forward, and working with your CIO and CFO to align the acquisition strategies, the financial budget, and the CIO in terms of the delivery of those mission critical services.
How much difference does it make for the agencies that got appropriated budgets as a result of this deal versus the agencies that just have CRs?
So for agencies that have budgets, they're going to continue to be moving forward, but even with those, they still are impacted. The 44 days shutdown, I would say, is just a quantification of the shutdown, but there's going to be long-lasting effects. Projects that were in flight, moving, that were modernizations were moving forward, those had likely stopped. And from that, you likely potentially have lost people because of that. So the retooling of your staff, the retooling of the vendors that supported those modernization efforts, now you have to reset that and rebaseline. To me, it's an opportunity to focus on what are the real mission services needed and where budgets need to be aligned, and also the acquisition to be aligned to support those future states.
Those 3 assessments that you listed earlier, what stopped, what slowed down, and what kept going, would you advise a CIO to respond differently based on which of those categories something fits into, or based on the risk management framework of the agency, or based on the importance of the program to delivering on mission? How does one go about maybe plotting those to determine what to attack or what to triage first?
So what I would do in this role, I would show those to the heads of the agencies and let the heads of the agencies help prioritize what's most important. In the case of things that have stopped, to me, this is an opportunity to retool, to energize the next 18 months. It lays out your roadmap for the next 18 months to modernize. You want to eliminate the need of human action for services to continue during any type of disruption. And by doing that, that will lay a path moving forward. But then from the things that are working, those are lessons learned to where you can reconstitute those things across other applications in the network.
How important is an after-action report type document or repository of information to understand what happened, where things fit among those three areas, and how one responded, to be able to kind of have a library of information?
So I think it helps you identify where there's low-hanging fruit of things that you can do now today. Other things, for example, you might have systems that are in the data center that you cannot scale that quickly to modernize them to get them ready to go. But where you have things that are cloud ready, you might need to re-architect things. Those things could be just changing the technology. I'll give an example. Using infrastructure as a service, platform as a service is the old way of using technologies in the cloud. Now you have serverless environments. If I use a serverless environment, I am not worried about that infrastructure I have to maintain in the cloud because the cloud provider is providing that. So to me, it helps me figure out the quick wins and those that require a lot more planning.
I mentioned that some agencies have appropriated bills, some agencies are under a CR. I hate to be a negative Ned, but those agencies that are under the CR are already telling me we're thinking about having to go through this again in January. What's the groundwork that one can lay now in the unfortunate circumstance that we're looking at this possibility again in January?
So I would look at it from the perspective of where there is opportunity to have quick wins, take those cost avoidance and recapitalize those and other investments to move forward. At FCC, there was not net new dollars in those modernization efforts to get it out of the data center. It was taking cost savings, reducing licenses, reducing outdated technology, a third of the infrastructure eliminated, taking that, recapitalize that in cloud services. You will slow down, but that doesn't, because of CR doesn't mean you can't move forward.
Mm-hmm. What are the things at the FCC that you think that you did that lay the groundwork for that kind of a gain?
The first thing is looking from the landscape of the entire enterprise and how we could collapse things. For example, we had 97 different systems that we collapsed down to using 50 licenses versus 97 licenses. That where you can recapitalize things and not have to redo things using the same old like-for-like approach. To me, that is the short wins that you can put into place. Even your network and collapsing your network and how it is a third of the infrastructure was eliminated because it was redundant in nature. It was not necessary. In addition, the resilience by moving to the cloud, eliminating tech debt. That is an agency's kryptonite. Mm-hmm. It is the worst thing that you can have on your network because it takes a lot more hands on the keyboards to keep the technology moving. And when the shutdown will probably show where these systems and trying to bring them back up again and be able to bring the services. Those are things that you want to expedite in the next 18 months.
Do you expect to see a round of kind of broken stuff as some of these applications and systems try to come back up and they don't work as well as people anticipate?
There is always that. Even when I first came to FCC, I was like, well, why is these systems not rebooted? They've been sitting here for a year, 2 years not rebooted, and they were concerned about them coming up. Mm-hmm. That's a valid concern. To me, I said we're going to work through those things and make sure we have maintenance time down to make sure that we understand that if something happens, if there's power loss or anything like that, they can reconstitute. But more importantly, we need to move out of those data centers, get to the cloud, get out of that CapEx approach to how we support modernization, get to an OpEx to where modernization occurs all the time, not waiting for the next budget cycle and where CRs can disrupt those modernization efforts.
Which takes us back to the beginning of the conversation and I guess reinforces the reason that the CFO is so important to be joined at the hip for the next several months.
Absolutely. Both the CIO and CFO are critical in this because in 44 days you will have projects that have stopped. Well, what happens? That kicks it down the road. Those projects those 44 days that you lost, in addition, you might have just trying to get staff back in because a partner that you had in play may have lost staff. So now that kicks down the roads. That means potentially in 26 or 27, you may have a need for extension of acquisition, or you may have a need for additional new funds that you didn't account for because of the shutdown.
What's the best way to measure how an agency rebounds from this situation, Alan?
I would say the first thing is actually road mapping things, laying a clear picture so that the heads of the agency can see exactly what needs to happen. I know when I left FCC, one of the things I did is made sure I briefed the chairman out exactly where we're going, what needs to be done, and what things in his priorities that can be achieved immediately, and what things require more planning. And to me, laying that down to where you have clear vision, a clear strategy, and be able to align your CFO, CIO, and CIO to address those things short and long term.
Exit interview type question for you as we wrap up. What did you not get done, not complete at FCC that you wish you could have stuck around to see the end of?
It would have been the last 5 remaining systems, getting them out of the data center. They are on the cuffs of getting them out. I expect here, early January, February timeframe, them getting out. But once out of that data center into the cloud, modernization is unlimited. Being able to deliver services and scale at a faster rate. Years become months become days by using the technology available in the cloud.
It's great to have you on the program, Alan. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much.
You can read more about the technology restart after the shutdown on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, data-driven AI success for every agency. Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
How do we solve our nation's biggest challenges? Precision, speed, honor. No manual, no roadmap, no problem. Launching AI in orbit, using XR on the battlefield. Stopping fentanyl at the border, making America stronger, safer, faster. It's who we are and how we lead. Booz Allen, it's in our code.
Sometimes it's not like just a 22-year-old that's making a threat on Discord. Sometimes you have a 55-year-old that's operating on other social media sites or other networking sites where they're making these types of threats. And so not just the ability to identify and alert, but to investigate.
What's the solution to determining whether somebody making a threat is really serious about it, or does that involve just getting inside the mind of the person that's doing so? Are there tools that can help with that?
Yeah, so a lot of it that comes down to threat management. So a lot of times people think threat management is risk management, and it's not. It's actually its own sort of like science and art sort of mix of the two, where you kind of have to look at the individual, the state of mind that they're in, and then also looking at, what's their proximity to weapons and also the proximity to the protecting of themselves.
Welcome back. You've heard several guests on Fed Gov Today TV and the Fed Gov Today podcast recently cite data as one of the most important foundational elements for AI success. Federal government technology and data leaders tell me the reopening after the shutdown may yield an opportunity for big productivity gains with AI. Ted Kauk is founder and author of GenerativeWork.ai. He's former Chief Data Officer at OPM and former chair of the Federal Chief Data Officers Council. Ted, welcome. It's great to see you again.
Great to see you,
What
Francis.
are the opportunities that you see for agencies to use AI to kind of get back to normal as quickly as possible?
Well, I think one of the questions that people have is how can we cut through some of the red tape with AI? And of course, there are risks that we need to take account of. But I think one of the safest ways that people can engage with AI is prototyping. Speed to innovation, I think, like never before, the cost of that has been reduced, and that really goes along with the number of ideas that you can test out safely in an environment. We did an experiment just prior to the shutdown, a 30-day challenge where we built 30 applications in 30 days. What was interesting about that was another chief data officer who was engaging in that process. And again, the speed to be able to develop some applications, even with synthetic data in a safe way, is one of the best opportunities agencies have to engage going forward.
And it strikes me that the dynamic has shifted in such a huge way that agencies can almost spin those up on their own. Budget doesn't sound like it's really an issue because agencies have access to so many AI tools now. There's really no reason not to, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think just getting people's feet wet, getting them into the ecosystem of building these things quickly, what they can realize is that really testing out those ideas and taking it to a business partner and having them look at the application will tell them whether it's worth investing and further investing in that particular application.
The term getting people's feet wet, what's the best way to pursue that at a time when a lot of agencies feel stretched, a lot of agencies don't have budget for formal types of training? What are the best ways to do that?
I think one thing that we need to sort of take account of with the culture within agencies is the past 50 or 60 years, we've really had managers and leaders be the ones who are providing guidance or behavioral feedback, and that's really going to be a skill set that everyone in the workforce is going to need now. So that means guiding your AI agents as a team, and I think that's one thing that leaders can take on personally is I do that on a daily basis, and that's the skills that my employees are going to be able to need to work effectively with AI going forward. So how can I start to learn it myself so that I can teach this to them?
So the 30 apps in 30 days process, what was the vetting process to determine whether the idea for an app kind of met the criteria of investing time and resources on, and how does that track to how an agency should think about it?
Well, I mean, a couple of principles to keep in mind. First, there is this idea of speed. And so building an app in a day shows that you can pursue something very quickly and then discard it if it's not a good idea. So we started with a very broad sort of palette. We looked at design thinking, decision-making support, games, educational tools. I think the most important principle in getting started is to be deliberate with your intent. There's a lot of, I think, misinformation about large language models out there, I think it's safe to say. And the truth is that large language models can perform behaviors anywhere from supporting a learning environment all the way into pure execution. Often work that we're doing in knowledge work is somewhere in the middle. Just being deliberate with our intent when we're building the application and knowing what the user needs, I think, is the first thing to keep in mind.
A lot of discussion that I've seen, not just in the federal marketplace, but in the commercial sector too, about LLMs and how they fit into the AI discussion. And for a long time, the progression seemed to be robotic process automation. Then people talked about LLMs a lot. Then the focus almost went entirely to AI. Now the conversation is kind of a sync of the two of those ideas, AI and LLM. What is driving that? And am I discerning that correctly? And is that happening for some reason that you know of, Ted?
Well, not to get too technical with it, but I think, again, on the side of agentic behaviors, you're actually using natural language and subject matter expertise to create those behaviors. And so that means that that's not really, it's being driven by code, but it's also created by the human aspect of really understanding what those behaviors are and providing that feedback. And then we have coupled traditional code where we have automated processes or algorithms that are running in the background that are executing some of those processes. And so those two things are coming together with AI, and that means we need a multidisciplinary approach to make all of this work. We're going to have people from the humanities and social sciences entering into tech, and we're going to have people from tech kind of leaning into the humanities and social sciences more and more as this evolves.
A number of the things that you've mentioned so far in this conversation will require agencies to do things differently, dramatically differently in some cases, than they have before. The fact that lots of people will be involved in the training and education sharing and so on. The multidisciplinary approach that you just described is not common among federal agencies. What or who should drive the cultural shift that'll be required to be able to make these things successful?
I think there's a big responsibility for chief human capital officers to really understand what skill sets are going to be needed, how they're going to drive that into the workforce, but also what is the makeup in terms of agentic workers who are working within a particular organization, and the relationship between those and the employees who are focused on driving the outcomes with those at the helm.
How high level should that be, though? It strikes me that to really be effective in that way, it almost might require a complete skills inventory for the entire agency, and then deciding these skills have to be humans, these skills can be agents, and to break it down from there. And that could wind up making an agency look completely different 5 years from now than it does today.
I really do think that we're going to be investing in the workforce for the kind of workforce transformation that we haven't seen in many, many, many decades, if ever. And so that really will require a fundamental reshaping of the skill sets that are needed. Again, I think we're going to see business acumen, multidisciplinary thinking being something that everyone in the workforce is going to have to start to adapt to, and I think there is going to need to be that systematic approach for organizations to be able to tackle it effectively.
Last time you and I talked, you mentioned the hype cycle that people are going through with AI, was the term that you used. Are you starting to see agencies break out of that and think about artificial intelligence more practically? Or are there a lot of folks that are still looking for AI for the sake of looking for AI?
I think we're still in the process of evangelizing and having people learn and get their feet wet. I really do. And so I think there are certainly pockets where people have really understood what outcomes are possible. One of the strange things with working with large language models is there are often breakthrough outcomes, both over multi-month periods, but even within a single day, that are just out of reach, and whether or not you're going to be able to cross that chasm is you're only going to be able to find out by experimenting and testing. So people have to realize that it's not going to come from just one prompt or a single activity. It's going to take some fortitude to sort of learn what's possible, and I think that spirit of innovation is really what needs to take root, and we're still kind of on the path to getting there, I think.
Are there policy or process dictates that will help to achieve the things that you just described? I'm thinking in particular of updates to the federal data strategy or policy issues from OMB or other things like that that will help drive some of these things that maybe don't exist today.
I think one would be coming back to that safe sandbox. Do organizations and employees who have ideas about how they can innovate within an organization have a safe place where they can experiment, where they can create synthetic data as opposed to sensitive data, and where they can build things outside of long procurement cycles? I think that's one simple step that agencies can take. And I think having a workforce training plan and skills development roadmap is another one. Really thinking about what is going to be needed for your particular agency, I think would be two really good steps for agencies to take.
You talked about the workforce a few minutes ago. What are the most important things that you'd like to see individuals do, whether they're in leadership or rank and file employees, to continue to keep their skills up to date, to continue to get their feet wet, as you've described it a couple of times, to make sure that they're able to go along for the ride and not kind of get swept up?
This is a tough one, so I think we're all going to have to encourage ourselves here. I really think it's about recognizing that as AI adoption goes to 100%, just using it isn't going to be enough. We're going to need to think about innovation, and that means what can I as the human coupled with the AI do that neither the AI alone or myself could do alone, and really thinking about that envelope and pushing toward that. So I think an innovation mindset is really going to be important for agencies going forward.
Do you expect to see tools from the agencies to help people achieve that innovation mindset, or is that even possible? Or is there such a thing as a tool that helps somebody think in a more innovative way?
I think you will learn that in the doing, right? But I think one of the key changes that we'll see with large language models is it was cost prohibitive to build bespoke applications for small and medium-sized organizations in the past, and that's just not going to be the case anymore. So we're going to have the ability to shape and customize things rather than fitting ourselves into the mold of large enterprise applications.
Final thought, is there a risk to getting too micro when it comes to developing applications in the bespoke nature that you just described, or is that not possible?
I think you're going to need to think as an enterprise, so I think context mapping and really leveraging AI on a broad scale is going to be important, but then there's got to be room for some bespoke experimentation innovation for specific workflows that are only pertinent to a particular agency. So I think we have to bring all those things together.
Ted, it's always great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Francis.
You can read more about data and AI success post-shutdown on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. With the shutdown ending, the focus on the Fed Gov Today podcast is helping you get back to normal as quickly as possible. Federal leaders who've been through it before are the guests on recent and upcoming shows to help you navigate the challenges as you get your teams and your mission back up to speed. You find the Fed Gov Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your shows. And you can always listen on demand at fedgovtoday.com. Fed Gov Today with Francis Rose is back in a moment.
The grants community is woefully underserved by their existing grants management systems and grants technologies. And it's really handicapped us in general. So we put out the Grants Accelerator in 2020. We worked with Microsoft to identify the right mix of technologies to streamline a system that we can stand up quickly in the event of a disaster or an emergency, COVID being a great first example of that. And that is super flexible, can be used in a wide variety of grants management scenarios, and even, by the way, non-grant scenarios. So there are a lot of funding mechanisms that are, I would call them grants adjacent, things like benefits and assistance or even claims programs. And we've used EYGA, that's our shorthand, across the gamut of those types of projects. And really what it gives us and what it gives our grant makers who use it is the flexibility to try new things. So not to just put out different kinds of money, but to try putting it out in different ways and see how the results change. To aggregate that data into one place so that they can see the impact of that. To have a secure, safe location that respects the trust that grant recipients and members of the community place in all of us to safeguard their data appropriately.
Welcome back. In today's event spotlight, AFCEA DC's 49th annual Winter Gala is coming to the National Building Museum again next month. It's one of the biggest networking events of the year. More than 1,000 people will be there, including some of the top people from the Pentagon, the national security and intelligence community, and industry. This year's gala is Friday night, December 12th. You can read more about the event and register at fedgovtoday.com/events. FedGov Today TV's back next Sunday morning at 10:30. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.
So as these organizations are modernizing and pushing more into cloud, that's actually a great benefit for us because the connections that we can do with cloud driven by APIs is a lot easier on the federal government. So when you talk about getting that information into your data lake or into your SIM, it's more cost effective as they're pushing more into cloud to be able to ingest that information directly into a platform. And then when you couple that with endpoint detection and response, all of that rich data that the SOC needs access to do their mission is all coming into the same place, giving them that one console. So it's streamlining them, giving them a lower level of effort to learn a new tool, and then easier to deploy and get people on board.
If you want insights from agency and industry leaders on the latest topics in technology, management, workforce, defense, and acquisition, sign up for the Fed Gov Today podcast with me, Francis Rose. I release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so you'll stay up to date on the issues that matter most to federal government leaders. Listen at fedgovtoday.com and everywhere you get your shows. Don't miss out on the conversation. Follow the podcast today.